Here we come, blue and white, and we're looking good. You'll be in for a fight, and we fight pretty good. Getting goals is our job, and we get goals good. Looking good, we are Carlisle United.
Hello everyone and welcome to the Brunton Bugle, the number one Carlisle United podcast for all your needs to do with Brunton Park. I'm Lee Rooney.
And I'm Dan McLennan.
On today's episode we look back at United's last two games, including the end of the goal drought in a thriller at Rodney Parade, previewing a big 6-pointer against Keith Curle's Oldham Athletic, and giving the latest update on the hunt for a new boss.
With a pass so true to Boulder Stone and Clark's in view. There's a cross and a run. The old one too.
I ran out of time that time, Dan, didn't I?
Yeah, I know, it was tight.
Do you know what it was? It's because I changed the intro bit, the very start of the intro.
Yeah.
And caught myself out a little bit. How you doing, mate?
Yeah, not bad. Not bad.
Good. Anyone listening today thinking my voice sounds a bit funny, it's because I've had a cold for the last few days. So
I think half the nation has. I've had a little tickly cough. Yeah. But that's hopefully the last one.
Yes.
Because I know people were loving Mike's cough. Yes,
I'll make sure that one gets edited out, I'll tell you that. I do apologise for last week. I did miss a few of them, so there you go. But yeah, so it's got me a little bit bunged up, but hopefully shouldn't affect us too badly. Let's get straight into it, Dan, because we've got lots to cover. Because obviously we didn't do a preview episode for the Newport game, did we? So
yeah, we didn't have time, did we? So.
Just didn't have time to fit it in, unfortunately. So let's get straight into the news, Dan. There's only one real big bit of news this week, isn't there? And that is, of course, the Blues drawing Horsham in the first round of the FA Cup.
Yeah.
Interesting draw, this one, isn't it? So yeah, for the third season in a row, United are going to face non-league opposition in the first round as Isthmian's Premier League division side Horsham travel up to Brunton Park. Despite struggling in their league, Horsham saw off National League side Woking in the first final qualifying round, to make it to the first round proper for the first time since the 2007-2008 season, where I think they played Swansea City, didn't they, in the second round?
Yeah, second round, yeah.
And Swansea won the league that year, and they took them to a replay, so they did pretty well. It's not going to be one of the live games this weekend, we know that for certain. But it will be taking place on the weekend of the 6th and the 7th of November. No confirmation of kickoff time yet because we think it might be one of the games that gets selected for one of the online streams, like the Hayes and Yedding game or the Doncaster game last season.
Yeah, they also do the Sunday Goal show, don't they?
Yeah.
Where they have like 8 or 10 games, and with Horsham being like such a low level, chances are that's the sort of game that they'd like to have a roving reporter at. And
well, you had a guess at them, didn't you? In our chat, you said, I reckon these games are going to be the live TV games.
I wasn't far off, was I?
You got one wrong, but you did comment and say, it wouldn't surprise me if there was a Salford Loving.
Yeah.
And what do you know, Salford with the game picked.
Yeah.
So there
Which
you go.
I think was a bit disappointing for Kingsland Town against Walsall. But
yeah, it's a bit of a shame we weren't away for this game, I think, as well. Actually, we would have been live on telly if it'd been away, and it would have been a nice little trip. But there you go. So looking forward to that one. It's a no-win situation for us, is it? Really, we've got to, we're seen as if we don't beat them, then it's an embarrassment. If we don't hammer them, really, it's an embarrassment. But yeah.
But on the flip side, it could be a nice first home game for a potential new manager.
It could well be. It almost certainly is going to be, isn't it? Really, because Gavin Skelton's going to be in charge this weekend. That's been confirmed.
Yeah. We could do that thing like Newport did, where you announce a manager and he's from Monday type thing.
Yeah, I reckon it'll be sorted next week. Personally, I can't see them dragging out any longer. But there you go. Well, let's just briefly then touch on the manager search, Dan. No real update from the club just yet, is there? I think we're still waiting for the final sort of confirmation on this, but
yeah, it's remarkably quiet.
It was last time there, wasn't it? Really,
it was, but there was the odd gamble. I mean, the only gambles we've seen this time was Danny Granger early on, and then John McGreal at the end of last week, and John McGreal's still fairly big favourite, but there's absolutely nothing anywhere linking anyone to this job. We've been looking on message boards, Twitter, Facebook groups, and there's just nothing.
Well, you rely a bit on the odds, don't you? Now, early on, the odds on the betting sites, as we said before, are just crazy. And, a couple of quid on someone and suddenly they start shooting up the thing. But usually you've got your settled mark at the start, these names come out, and then it settles, and then when names start to appear, you're like, oh, they must be in for it.
Yeah.
Which leads us on to, obviously, the list. I've picked out, I think, is it 7 names here, I think, that potentially in for it. Now, Danny Granger.
These are all the ones that are basically at the top of the list of the bed.
Well, a couple of them aren't quite at the top at the moment, but they have appeared over the last couple of days, and they're interesting names. So, first up, Danny Granger, we said it before, he's someone we wouldn't have a problem with getting the job. We think it'd be quite an interesting appointment and certainly get the fans back on side. I'm not 100% convinced he'll get it at this stage, to be honest. I think they might look for someone a little bit more experienced right now, but we'll have to see on that one. I've put Gavin Skelton in it. I don't think he will get it, but I don't think he's doing himself any particular harm so far. He's done all right, but I don't think they're going to take the risk of going for an internal appointment on this one, I think. John McGreal, we've mentioned, obviously, already. Paul Tisdale's still right up there. We don't think he'll get it again because of the distance.
He is with one, but he isn't with another.
Yeah, which is interesting.
It's quite a big price with another one, which suggests that I think it was Sky Bet have had a little bit of money for him, whereas Bet Victor have had sod all.
Which is strange because usually people put the bets on all of them, don't they? So it's a strange one, that one. Next up, Marvin Bartley. This is an interesting one. It appeared, didn't it? There's an article in the Scotsman saying he was the leading runner for the Cal United job. If you dug a little bit deeper into this, because he's assistant manager at Livingston, isn't he?
Yeah.
Now, if you dig a bit deeper, the reporter who wrote this article, if you go to her Twitter feed, she's done a few bits with Marvin Barton in the past. She's obviously one of the people, a lot of reporters have this. They have people who they go back to speak to and get, good articles from, don't they? So I'd imagine his agent has tipped her and said he's applied for the job. He's maybe getting an interview. I do wonder, we said this before, haven't we, about the whole Rooney rule thing, whether, we have someone lined up who is from a BA background that we have to interview, and whether he might be the person in
it would certainly make sense, wouldn't it?
Yeah. And he's, by all accounts, a decent coach and done quite well at Livingston, so it'd be an interesting appointment, to say the least. It would.
He's quite vocal on his Twitter.
Yeah.
If you have a look on his Twitter, he'll engage a lot, which... Maybe isn't the best for
no, not with our fans. I'll tell you
that. For a potential manager, it's quite interesting.
Yeah, but
he does do a bit of media work as well.
So the other two names that have come up are Chef Kikuchi, interesting one that came out.
Yeah, he just appeared last night, didn't he?
Yeah, he's also went very short at first, but they've gone back down, haven't they? I think up a little bit even. Sorry, interesting one. Nearly 10 years after we almost signed him, didn't we, under Greg Abbott? Remember that? And he went. I think he went to Oldham a year later, I think, or something like that. But Chef Kikuchi. So he's managed a few clubs in Finland, but never in England.
Not for a while though.
Yeah.
There is the odd. There's a lot of non-league managers on this list, which I think are half guesses. But I don't think they are half guesses. I think it's basically they've applied for the job and told their mates, and their mates have. One that did pop in was Saba Laszlo, the ex-Hearts and Dundee United manager.
That's a balmy one, isn't it?
Which was just
out of nowhere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Ryan Mason went short for a little bit, didn't he?
He did, because there was some talk of someone who'd been a caretaker at a Premier League club from down south, potentially being linked to the job. There was some people suggesting Kelvin Davis was in it. He's not appeared on any of the odds side. I imagine he probably isn't the one. Interestingly, though, Keith Millen has appeared on it, and he has been a caretaker at a Premier League club a few times, actually, at Crystal Palace. So I wonder, and I think he was managing in Sweden, somewhere like that.
Yes, he was.
I can't remember the name of the club.
He was in Sweden. Funnily enough, I was doing my little look about who was on the list. Orgate, that was it, Orgate.
Yeah.
But I think it didn't really happen much because of COVID.
Yeah, I think his odds weren't quite short for a bit, and then again they've jumped right up on most of them now. I think they're as high as Tisdale's or even higher possibly. So they're your main ones.
The only thing with someone like that is he's never been further north than Bristol.
No, and he's not really managed full time much, has he? He's been mostly caretaker. So at the age of 55 or something like that, it'd be an interesting one to suddenly become a full time manager with us. But yeah, I mean, to be honest, the more you look, I mean, McGreal looks the standout candidate at the moment, doesn't he, really? He looks the one most likely to get it. His odds are still short, which means a fair bit of money's been put on him. The talk we heard was the other day that some interviews were taking place.
Can we just go back to Keith Millen?
Yeah.
I'm sure he played for Watford.
He did indeed, yeah.
and was a certain director of football there at that time.
Oh, he could be, actually. That's a fair point, though.
Let me
actually,
just
yeah.
pull it up on the...
You're going to do a bit of connecting the dots here and look at the years they were both at clubs, weren't you? So
Yeah, he was. He was at Watford for a couple of years with him.
so maybe that'll be the connection. I mean, there's some people suggesting that actually Chef Kikuchi was at Ipswich at the same time as John McGreal, wasn't he? So maybe there's a connection there. Maybe he's looking to bring him in as a coach or something. I don't know. But yeah, so that's the names we've got at the moment. We're no closer to finding out who's going to be boss, are we? We're just waiting and seeing. Skelton's got the job for this weekend, so it might not be till Monday.
We'll be scouring the car park from an early time on
definitely
Saturday to see who's going in the plat stand.
Me and Mike, well, interesting to see who's in the director's box, maybe, potentially, if they've already decided on who it is.
Well, yeah.
Because there was an interesting face in the director's box last weekend, wasn't there, Dan? Let's get on to the Tranmere match review a bit. We've got the Newport one as well coming up. But Carl United 0, Tranmere 1. Tight game, wasn't it, Dan? It's interesting first game for Skelton to take charge. I mean, can't really come up against a much tougher defence in the division. Still only conceded, 4 goals this season, I think?
Yeah, there's not many goals in Tranmere matches, which we sort of alluded to in our previews.
Yeah, last week we felt that was the case. I mean, looking at both games altogether, it was 2 tough games in the space of a few days. Saw United pick up just 1 point out of a possible 6, but undeniably, though, there were signs of improved performance from the Blues, especially the trip down to Newport, I think, for the midweek game. That was a big improvement on what we've seen for most of this season, to be honest. Started well against Tranmere, but just couldn't find a way through a very impressive back line and conceded a sloppy own goal against County. They started the game brilliantly with an early goal, despite...
You couldn't get much earlier, could you?
Well, no, you couldn't really. And despite showing the fragility that's plagued the season so far by going behind before half-time, they battled back well in the second half and were probably unlucky not to take all 3 points from what was a pulsating encounter in the rain. I describe it.
That's a good description. Pulsating.
It was pretty exciting. It was a good game of League Two football considering the conditions, and nice to see a decent pitch at Newport for once as well.
Yeah.
Bit of grass in it for once. Gavin Skelton said after the game they need no complaints about the pitch. It was fantastic. Great surface to play on. Let's look at the Tranmere game first then, Dan. There was a few changes from Skelton this one, and the biggest surprise was Mark Howard starting the game, wasn't it? I mean, we said in the preview we thought he'd probably be on the bench start just as cover and Jensen would carry on, but he didn't. And there's some reports, isn't there, that Jensen was very unhappy about this and has actually asked to go back to Burnley because he feels he should have been starting.
Which I can get.
Yeah,
I can
totally get.
I'm not saying it's right, but put yourself in his shoes. Your rivals out. You start a game, not really to blame for any of the goals you conceded, and then you dropped. I can see why.
I don't mind Skelton's reasoning, though. I think Skelton did a really good job after the game explaining why he did it. He said basically, just need to get experience in this team. And that's something he's recognised. He's taken a week for him to recognise we actually need experienced heads in the team.
I don't think it's took him a week to recognise, to be quite honest.
No, I think he needs straight away. And I do wonder if Beech had been still in charge and it looked like Howard was signing whatever happened, whether he would have kept him on the bench potentially rather than starting. Yeah. That's what I think he would have done. So solid enough first half. Only one real chance for us though, wasn't there? Really, that was the Clough one where he picked up on a loose ball and the keeper made a decent save. And they had a couple of long range efforts, but again, Howard wasn't massively tested first half, was he? It was a very solid sort of game, and you could see why Tranmere had done so well this season.
Yeah, they started quite iffy, didn't they? But the last few weeks have really picked up, and it'd be no surprise to see them right up there at the end of the season. Yeah,
it'd be great as well to show that Mike's prediction was wrong on that one as well. So
I think I said they'd be up there, didn't I?
Me and you both did. We both have them in the top 3. Yeah. So second half, I mean, conceding that goal so soon, 3 minutes after the break, just drained all the confidence out of them, didn't they? And it's one of those ones, Whelan gets a bit caught on the right, doesn't he? And the lad's in, low ball comes in, and I do feel for McDonald it's a difficult one because he's wondering what to do because he can't really take a touch. He doesn't know who exactly is right behind him potentially, and he just gets his feet completely messed up, doesn't he? It's one of the. It happens to defenders, isn't it? I think Whelan's done the same in another game, and it's just a little bit unlucky with that one.
After they scored, literally 2 minutes later, we had a chance up in front of the Warwick that
yes, we did. Yeah,
we didn't connect with, and it was one of those where if we were in Tranmere's position, we would have scored that.
Yeah,
because we just went 1-0 down to a bad own goal, a dodgy own goal. We haven't connected with it, and that's it. So it's
one of these ones where Gibson was just stretching, wasn't it? And I think if any other time, if he was a bit more up with play, he would have probably comfortably put it away, but he couldn't really direct it either side of the keeper, could he? He just had to stretch and do what he could with it, and then we got the penalty, Dan, and it's one of those ones Whelan's got to look at it, and he was just poor defending all round, wasn't it?
Yeah,
got to do so much better there. I mean, the lad goes past him, he barely even tries, and Mellish is in a situation where he's just got to put a tackle in because the lad's going to get a shot off and score probably if he doesn't. So he just had to try and do something, and got the tackle in, and Morris steps up to take the penalty, and good save by Howard, to be fair. He kept his legs high, and because I think he sort of tries to put it down the middle, doesn't he? And he rather than dive completely the other way, he makes sure his legs are sort of there to actually make a connection, doesn't he?
Yeah, it was that whole sort of first 15-20 minutes of the second half. It was scrappy, but it wasn't. It was quite hard to describe. There was so much went on, and the sum total of it was it showed why we're where we are in the league, because you just get nothing going for you when you and whereas Tranmere are on the up again, and it did for them.
Absolutely, it just goes to show you sometimes, doesn't it? So after the penalty, I think there's only really one other chance we had, wasn't there, Dan? That was the long range effort from Mellish that went just inches wide of the post. Actually, I thought I have to say in this game, first half, Mellish put in probably one of the most disciplined performances I've seen him put in for us. Playing in a midfield 2 rather than a 3, he actually put in a really good performance. He had to slot in at centre-back later in the game because Feeney, I think, picked up a knock, maybe like a bruised rib or something, didn't he? Because he was holding his chest.
A lot of people didn't seem to notice it. I saw a couple of people, what did we take him off for? No defenders. For about 5 minutes, he was sort of holding his chest and rib cage or something.
Yeah.
There was a couple of chats with the bench, and from where I was sat, when he came off, we actually saw him go straight up the tunnel with the club doctor. So he clearly took a knock or a bang or something wasn't right, but he was back down a couple of minutes later and back on the bench. So, I wonder if he's just been winded or something, and he's been a bit short of breath from it.
Yeah, possibly. And like we said, he played on Tuesday night, so there can't have been anything wrong with him long term. It's just one of those games, wasn't it, Dan? At that point, Tranmere just did a job on us, and I mean, Jay Spearing was so impressive in the centre midfield. That's the kind of play we're missing this season. And someone like Peter Clark at the back. I mean, 39 years old, he barely broke a sweat, didn't he? He was really, really impressive. And it's one of those ones. And I think we just look back at it now. Just look. Didn't get a point from it. We didn't disgrace ourselves, did we? Either. So take the positives and move on. That was the best thing to do from that game. Got to touch on who was at the game, though, don't we, Dan?
Well, there was someone there, wasn't he? I don't think he'll be our next manager, but...
Well, who was it? It was...
The buzz is back. We're all excited. I'll prove there's only one United. The world is watching this football team, 'cause I don't say what I don't mean.
We'll be the judge of that one, Michael. Thank you very much. Well, we were, though. We went to see him on Friday night, me and you, didn't we? We popped along to the old fire station for the event. I mean, I was umming and ahhing about whether to go. I didn't feel great about the idea of putting money into his pocket, but he gave up his fee to the Motor Neuron Disease Association Fund for Tony Hopper.
Regardless of your opinion of him, you can't knock the bloke for that.
Well, no, you can't at all. You can't at all. He could have easily pocketed the money. There was nothing to say he couldn't, and it was pretty much sold out already, wasn't it? So, to be fair, it's before he even decided to do that. So, fair play to him. And like we said, look, a lot of what he says is BS, and he gets a lot of things mixed up. He was mixing up a lot of his dates, wasn't he, in events? But he's a raconteur, isn't he? You could sit and listen to him for hours the way he talks. He's quite an interesting bloke in that sense. Still got issues about some of the things he was claiming, but interesting night overall, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was entertaining, and there was hardly any hostility in the room towards him. You know, I mean, you think about his reputation when he left the club. He's actually got a set of kahunas on him for coming back to the town. Full stop. You know,
coming back to the town, and then an even bigger set of kahunas for inviting himself to the game. Allegedly, I mean, he's denied it. He said that Andrew Jenkins invited him. The club have said nonsense. He just turned up, and it's one of those ones where I suppose he's a 70-year-old man. They think, oh, we don't really want to be hauling him out with some bloody bouncers here, do we? So let's just put up with it and just.
I don't think we'll ever get to the bottom exactly of what happened. Yeah. But I've been told that he was semi-expected.
Yeah, so. But maybe not so much invited. But they thought he was going to turn up, and they thought, well, let's not make a scene here. At least that's what they're thinking, isn't it? So there you go. Yeah, interesting. He didn't get much hostility at the end of the game, though, did he? He was stood there. He stood up. There were a few people shouting stuff, but most people were giving holds with abuse. And it was funny because it's like he was almost stood there like, no one's noticed me. He was like, bloody hell, this is brilliant. I didn't realise that, there's people more hated than me right now at the club. But there you go. Let's move on to the Newport game then, Dan. More changes from Skelton again. Showed he wasn't afraid. I mean, it's easy to say because obviously he's caretaker, so he can probably have a bit more freedom. And he did say this week, actually, I think it was early today, wasn't it, on Thursday, that he feels like he's enjoying it a bit more this time. He didn't really enjoy it being caretaker before Stephen Presley got the job, or after Stephen Presley lost the job. Sorry. Whereas this time he feels like he's enjoying it, doesn't he? So he's more changes, not afraid to mix it up. Riley and Dickinson at fullback, attacking.
He's played there a lot though, hasn't he?
Yeah, both of them have, to be fair. They're both playing Riley and Dickinson as fullbacks, and what they give you is they give you a real attacking threat from that position, don't they? They will get forward and cause problems, and I think we've said this before. It was probably about time Jack Armour got a rest from the team, because actually one thing we didn't touch in the Tranmere game there was they were targeting him, weren't they? They were really looking to play it to McManaman down the right and have a real go, and they got in behind 2 or 3 times, actually.
Congratulations on saying McManaman.
I got it right this time, thank you. Yeah. Hope everyone enjoyed the little bonus at the end of last week's episode, because that was a nightmare being able to say. I don't know what it was. I said it wrong once, and then I was like, did it again. I was like, oh god, this is going to be a nightmare now. And then I said to Mike, you're going to laugh now when I do it properly. I'm going to have to explain to you when I cut it out. But there you go. So yeah, no, they clearly targeted Armour, didn't they? So I mean, this game started with that lineup, and fair play. They started the game so rapid. I mean, actually, I should say as well, Charters started this game, didn't he? His first league start since the Walsall game, I think it would have been. Yeah, I don't think he started any other league games for us. Unless did he start one toward the end of the season? No, he didn't. He came on as a sub in one of them, didn't he? I think because for some reason Beech wouldn't play him for, even though the season was over essentially.
Yeah.
But yeah, so Joe Riley back into the team with a bang down, wasn't he? I mean, what an opening goal! It was like watching Brazil 70. We've not played football like this under Beech for. We're tall under Beech, really, didn't we? It was a good, fast-flowing move. I mean, Clough did well to nick the ball. I mean, him and Mellish did put good pressure on their player, nick the ball, get it to Riley on the right. Sorry, Gibson, I think, first and right. He plays it to Riley. He does a little 1-2 with Clough, and he's in and fires it in, doesn't he?
Yeah, and it's something we've seen him do a couple of times now, isn't it? You know, he's popped up in the box, and I actually think Riley would really suit a right wing back position.
Yeah, I mean, I think
Dickinson would on the left as well. You know,
it's whether you. Problem is, if you do that, where do you fit Gibson into the team? Maybe that's where you maybe have a challenge.
That's
you'd maybe not be able to fit Gibson and Clough in the same team if you're playing with wing backs, possibly. But no, I agree with you. I think I said, I mean, put it down as a point to talk later, but I'll say it now. Is right back his best position? I know he's played so well in midfield for us, but I think he's so good at driving us forward, and he can pick the ball and he can step into midfield almost at times. That's where Callum Guy should sort of drop and cover right back while he meanders forward. So I do wonder if that might be. I think Skelton's almost hinted, isn't he, that he thinks that that's actually his best position so far. I mean, he was brought in as a right back, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Originally.
Well, I think we had him down as sort of what's the utility
player?
I couldn't think of the word.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, really good start. We looked lively for the first 5 or 10 minutes or so, and then getting to the top after the 20-minute mark, and they were just starting to get into it, weren't they? And then they got 2 quick-fire goals round about the half an hour mark. Defending was poor on both of them, wasn't it, really? I mean, especially the second goal. I mean, the first one, Riley's caught a little bit upfield, and maybe McDonald could do a bit better to get tighter to Telford, but I mean, it's a good finish, isn't it? Good bit of footwork and finish it on the edge of the box from Telford. The second goal, it's one of those ones, isn't it? You look at it and it looks a brilliant goal when, you know, if you hear on the comments, you say, oh, he's beat 3 or 4 men, whatever, and put it in. But actually, just no one steps up to him, do they? And the problem at this point, I should say, actually, is that Rod McDonald had already been booked, hadn't he? So he couldn't really risk lunging in with a tackle. He almost has to back off and play that way when a player's running it in. That's the risk when you get an early booking in a game, isn't it?
Yeah, especially given how light we are on sort of defenders at the moment.
Yeah.
You know, it's not. I'm sure whoever does get the gig, that'll probably be the first. You know, hopefully we've got the goalkeeping position sort of covered now. You know, if ever there was a season where we needed an Anthony Gerrard or a Clint Hill, this is it. You know,
someone to just come in there and just grab them all by the scruff of the neck and just do it. Everything, no nonsense. Because I think there's one problem with. We'll talk about Rodney's recent performances in a second. I feel as well, McDonald's going to get a lot of blame for this goal, and probably quite rightly. And the problem is he got that stupid early booking, which meant he had to play this way. One issue I've got still with this, though, is Callum Guy's got a chance to step in at one point, and he doesn't. He stands off and just lets it go. And then you see him throw his arms up when the goal goes in, and I think to myself, you've been involved in that goal as well. You can't, deflect all the blame. And I think Feeney as well at the end just stands off a little bit too much. And so someone else has got to recognise there that, Rod's on a booking here. He can't lunge in. We need to back him up. We need to get a tackle in.
Well, the guy of last season would have been in, bang.
Yeah.
You know, the guy of this season, unfortunately, has been a shadow, and, we're still waiting to see him click into it. Yeah,
definitely. So, I mean, let's talk about McDonald then, Dan. I mean, not the 2 best games for me, I think it's fair to say. I mean, he's come back in after been out with concussion for a couple of weeks, wasn't he? I just feel at the moment, my biggest problem with McDonald is he's not no-nonsense enough. He tries a bit too hard to play it a bit too much, doesn't he? And he likes his sweeping cross-field balls, and he likes to... Sometimes he just doesn't boot the ball out of play, does he, from difficult positions? He tries to keep it in. And you just think, just get rid sometimes. Like you said, that's where you need him to be like an Anthony Gerrard and just get rid, don't you?
He's a very strange one, McDonald, because he seems a likeable bloke.
Yeah.
And when he does have a good game, he's very good. But he just doesn't have them enough at the moment. Well, it's probably the story of his career at Carlisle, to be quite honest, isn't it? Every good game, there's a couple of bad ones.
I mean, he's an experienced head in there, but he's not really a leader in the way that someone like a Bennett or a Hayden was.
No, he's not a big talker. He's quite quiet and unassuming, isn't he?
Yeah. I mean, you look at his record. He's been promoted twice from this level, and he's played at League One level for 3 years at Wimbledon. So he's not a dud. So it's a bit of an odd one, isn't it? He just can't quite find his feet at the moment. You do wonder if maybe we need an experienced head in there to take a bit of the pressure off him and off Feeney and off the rest of them, like Corey Whelan and Dinzey, if we ever see him play again. So second half, big improvement though, wasn't it, Dan? I mean, the penalty incident was mental, wasn't it? What went on there? I think what got missed in the build-up is Gibson actually hits both posts with his shot.
Yeah,
he deflects off one post, goes across the line, hits the other and comes out. And then I think was it Armour had a shot then as well, didn't he? I think that was... blocked, and then it comes out to Dickinson on the left, who does really well actually to pick out Young, and Young takes a touch and just swings at it with his left, and Upson makes some brilliant reflexes to save it, doesn't he? Just a shame that Upton's not the goalkeeper for them. Yeah. I mean, it's interesting that the ref takes a bit of time to have a think about it, doesn't he? And then he gives the penalty, because I thought first he's completely missed that, and then he gives it, and their manager said, he's just guessing it, but well, he's guessed the right way though, hasn't he? That's the point. And when you look at it, there's not much argument from Upson, is there, straight away? And if you watch the replay, his hand's out by the side of his head and he's blatantly saves it. So So can't really complain. Zach Clough steps up, strikes the penalty well, doesn't he? Well taken.
Yeah.
Yeah, he had a good game, Clough. I was quite impressed with him, really.
As we were going to say, Clough ended up in the League Two team of midweek off the back of his performance.
Yeah.
So I know they do use a bit of stats in that. So, and I think it was if you look on our friends at Fox Analytics, he put up a little piece on Clough's role on Tuesday, and it was all positive. He's thoroughly deserved that team of the week thing. So.
Absolutely.
But, maybe just having 2 or 3 games where he's played a good 60, 70, 80 minutes, he's maybe getting up to speed and, playing it a little bit more on the ground. He's maybe thinking, hey, I can start playing now.
Yeah. Yeah.
My 40-1 on him being top scorer will come back alive.
I think that's long gone, mate.
You never know.
You never know. But he nearly scored the winner towards the end of the game as well. Brilliant save from the keeper. I think Gibson had a long range effort saved as well. Compared against, I think the previous game we had looking shot stats wise, against Bristol Rovers, Tranmere Rovers even, we had 18 shots, but only 2 of them were on target, and there was a lot of long range ones that were going well over the bar. We had the same number, just one more actually shot against Newport, 19. 9 of them were on target. That's the big difference. We were actually getting, I think this is something that that Skelton touched on after the Tranmere game, a bit more composure in the final third, and you saw that, didn't you?
And
really do.
Just going back to the stats, another thing to mention, both games, we only had about 40% of the ball.
Yeah.
We're happy to let them have it's an old cliche. You don't need the ball to win the game. No, it's what you do with it when you've got it.
You've got 2 fullbacks like Riley and Dickinson. They can break at a bit of pace and take up the field. And Gibson as well, give him the ball. He's going to bring it right up the field too. And obviously Mellish, we know that when he gets the ball, he'll just charge forward, won't he? It goes to show, it works. Talk about the second red card. Foul had actually already been given for a trip on Riley, and then Haynes sort of lunges in on Gibson when the ball's already gone. Doesn't get anywhere near it. And I've just heard some of their fans say, oh, the free kick will be given. How can he give it? Well, it doesn't matter. It's still a foul, isn't it? It doesn't matter whether the ball's dead. It's still a foul and it's still a booking. So I don't think they could really argue much of that. Gibson terrorised Haynes for a lot of the game. And there was one point where I think he was trying to sort of shield the ball, wasn't he? And Gibson just nicked around him and he hauled him down for the first booking. So yeah, I don't think they could argue much of that, but I think you've got to give a lot of credit to Newport as well. For the last 9 minutes, they saw the game out brilliantly. They did a really, really good job on us there. The ball was probably only in play for about half of those 9 minutes, I think, and partly was Guy going down with that head injury, and for some weird reason, the ref decided not to add any time on top of injury time. Added on time, did he? So
maybe needed to dry out.
Possibly. It was very, very wet this game, wasn't it? So. Just a couple more things before we finish up the first half, Dan. We've got to talk about Jordan Gibson. Another excellent game. I'd argue here, I think he's probably the best winger in terms of the ability to beat a man and actually deliver an end product since Nicky Adams. The way he plays, I genuinely
certainly started well. If he can continue and get to the level that Adams was at in his first season, there'll be plenty of happy folk.
Definitely. He's looking a bit of a bargain so far for, 12 grand we played for him or whatever it was. So can't grumble too much at all with that one. And just obviously you mentioned Zach Clough before as well, didn't we? He's just starting to look a bit lively, and I think he just needs maybe a more of a natural striker alongside him. I think Alessandra's in there for that experience at the moment, and I can understand that. But he does too many similar things to what Clough does, doesn't he? Not quite as well as Clough. So I'd like to see Young maybe start the next game.
Unleash the fish.
Well, he got his chance at the end, didn't he?
Another 5 minutes, and I think we would have sneaked out with a Fishburne winner.
Possibly good. Good to see Charters complete the whole game as well. A bit of faith in him. He did a solid job on the left. So well done to him. And just one last mention here. I think Gavin Skelton deserves a bit of credit, Dan, that he hasn't been getting from a lot of our fans. I think the work he's done in the space of 2 weeks in terms of spotting weaknesses, looking to deal with them with the resources he has available to him right now, and putting together game plans for matches and looking like we actually are trying to play a bit of football and actually work to our strengths. The difference is just remarkable from the last 4 or 5 weeks of Beech's reign, isn't it? And his post-match interview as well against Newport, I put this on the B. Justin Fear Not Facebook group, but I was so impressed with it. I just got tired of Beech's post-match interviews towards the end. I mean, wasn't really enamoured by them from the start. I thought there was a lot of buzzwords and, frankly, bullshit in them, really, and, you know, talking about representing the community and stuff that means absolutely nothing. There was no real talk of actually what happened in the game quite often, where Skelton basically was just very clear. He's a clear communicator. He was saying, yeah, you know, we've got to use the ball a bit better, you know, take our chances when they come, and he explained quite clearly why he picked certain players and stuff like that. Just so much better, wasn't it, Dan?
Yeah, definitely. And Gav Skelton's done quite a few interviews as being games, especially midweek when, you know, they've been in a rush to get someone out to speak before the radio finishes, and it's, you know, he's very straight talking. He tells it how it is. If it's good, it's good. If it's bad, it's bad, and it's quite refreshing. Yeah, more than anything, you know.
Yeah, exactly. And another thing quickly on Skelton, he's binned off the long throws pretty much, hasn't he? He even admitted on Tuesday when we took a long throw towards the end, he was annoyed. He's like, keep the ball, just use it. You know, keep playing the way you were. I think they went to basically default. Oh, we're chasing the game. Let's just launch it forward at the end, and that was just nice to see a manager refreshingly saying we don't need to just launch it every time. Just use the ball better. But yeah, there you go. So it's obviously only 1 point out of 6, but decent signs there. I think, you know, there is weakness in the squad. There are players we need to bring in, but overall, positives we can take from that, definitely, Dan.
Definitely, and I think, as we'll discuss after the break, that Saturday it's a 6-pointer already, really.
Yeah, big opportunity. Right, let's take a quick break then, Dan, and we'll be back then with the second half of the show. We'll be previewing the Oldham Athletic game. We'll be back in just a sec. And we're back for part 2, Dan, where we're going to be previewing the Oldham Athletic game. First up, we've got to tell you, as usual, that the second half of the show is being sponsored this season by the Carl United Sports Club London branch. The London branch is open to all Carl United fans. They've got members from Cornwall to Dundee and Houston to Singapore, and of course every part of London and the South East, and there's even got some up in Cumbria. They regularly meet up on away trips as well as arranging many social events and sports games, and they do a lot of fundraising for the club as well. They'll be providing us with information for the away games as part of the preview section this season too. You can find out more about the London branch at their website, carlisle.londonbranch.org, and we know from speaking to the London branch that they've had some extra members as a result of sponsorship, which is good to hear. Okay, Dan, let's get on to the preview section then, Dan. First up, we've got the Catching Up with the Opposition podcast section. This week, we spoke to Matt from the Boundary Park Alert System podcast to discuss what on earth has been going on at Boundary Park and their fans' thoughts on Keith Curle. Now, strap yourselves in, because this is a long one. It's a bit longer than some of the others. I think it's about 25 minutes long, which, you know, you think, oh, God, that's a long time. But it's really interesting because he covers a lot of stuff in terms of the off-the-field issues at Oldham. And it's almost like putting a mirror up at times with some of the issues at Carl United, but there's a bit more apathy at the moment with us, where they've been past the apathy stage now and they're at the angry stage. So it's well worth a listen. I'm just you can skip forward 25 minutes if you want to get onto the bit where we talk about the Oldham game. That's fine, but I'd give it a good listen because it's really, really interesting. So it's well worth hearing what Matt's got to say. So here's a chat I had with him early today. Matt, I think it's quite fair to say it's been an eventful season so far for the Latics, hasn't it? Just give us a quick overview as to what's actually happened, because we've all seen these protests taking place and stuff like that, and some of our fans might not quite understand what's going on down at Boundary Park right now.
Yeah, I mean, as usual, most of the action and the excitement is off the pitch when it comes to Latics, I'm afraid. Another abysmal start to the season. We lost 6 of the first 7, I think it was, or something like that. And basically, I think the fans just had enough of these poor starts to the season. The same happened last season. I think the same thing would have happened last season. It was Harry Curle who was in charge at the time. Mm-hmm. I think we beat you in the League Cup at home in the first home game of the season, and then we just lost every game after that. So this was coming. The season start really badly because of the preparation in the pre-season. So this season, obviously, fans back in the ground. The season started terribly. We signed 5 players on the that were announced on the opening day of the season. You know, we've had all pre-season to prepare, and it's just more of the same. So fans started having enough. Throwing tennis balls on the pitch, running on the pitch, getting games stopped, protests outside the ground, and it was kind of like there was a lot of the younger fans who maybe aren't involved in some of the more sort of political side of things in the background, the supporters trusts and the supporters groups and all that kind of stuff, and the dialogue just got frustrated and thought, enough's enough here. Let's do something.
Yeah.
And to be fair, although they're not allowed to run on the pitch and it's illegal and all the rest of it, what it did was you get cut straight across on Sky Sports to, there's tennis balls on the pitch at Boundary Park, or there's fans on the pitch at Boundary Park, and next thing that's being talked about. And then because I'm on the supporters trust, I got a phone call from Talk Sport, and I'm on there with Simon Jordan and one of the directors from the club, and he's the director from the club saying things like, the supporters are killing the club. So obviously then everyone went into a rage over that, because we're like, it's you guys that are killing the club. The club sends its lawyer onto the radio to the first public contact with the fans for months and months and months. And it's that kind of level of thoughtfulness, I guess, you know what I mean? And in consideration towards the fans. It's like you just said just before we came on, you could probably talk about this stuff off the pitch constantly, but we're under an EFL embargo. There's only us and Scunthorpe that haven't paid it off yet, I believe. And so you're in illustrious company down at the bottom of the table with us there. And we've got staff leaving left, right, and centre. The way the club is being run, I'd be interested to find out a little bit more from you. Obviously, I know where Carlisle are, and I know how important this game is coming up. This is a long process. It's been going on for like 4 years. I think I came on this podcast last season and probably spoke about similar things. We've just had a sort of tipping point now in terms of the fans, where now the majority of the fans, the vast majority of the fans, want the owner out, and so the pressure is building, and we've got to that point. Is something similar going on at Carlisle, or are you just having one of those starts to the season?
A bit of both, really. I think it's probably fair to say we've just stagnated for about 7 or 8 years, probably even more maybe now, since we nearly made the League 2 or League 1 playoff, in 2011-12. We've just been bang average since then. We've just not really done anything, and the owners, I don't think they've got any sort of ill feeling in terms of the way they're treating the club. There's no malice there. They're just not very good, and they're not very exciting and not very charismatic people. Interesting, last week Michael Knighton was back in Carlisle to do a talk on the Friday night about his time at the club, and the good times and the bad times. Fans there didn't give him too much stick. There was a little bit of stick he was given, and I think a lot of fans just wanted to hear his story, and there was a lot of BS in there, but what do you expect? But he actually turned up to the game on the Saturday uninvited, allegedly, the club said, although he's denied it. He said that Dick Sherman invited him. If they did invite him, that shows that they're really not quite on the money as terms of fans' feelings, because a lot of the fans who went there obviously didn't go on the Friday night and didn't know about, didn't really want him to be there. So, our biggest problem basically is we're just stagnating at the moment, and we owe a lot of debt to Pure Pay, who are basically what was Edinburgh Wool Mill, and their owner is a guy called Philip Day, who was based near Carlisle and loaned the club money as Edinburgh Wool Mill.
And I was just wondering, really, so is the because this is what happened at Oldham, right? We had apathy for such a long time, 20 odd years, and it just kind of like people took their eye off, people got disinterested. You could see the rot just slowly, like just getting worse and worse and worse. Are you guys nearly at that point where you're sort of like getting mobilised and sort of, look, something's got to change now? I
think the problem we've got is we've got supporters trust who are not particularly well liked by a lot of the fans because of incidents in the past in relation to previous owners and stuff like that. It'd take too long to go into the detail, but essentially that's one of the issues. I think the problem is, as a club, we're not actually that badly run. We've made profits, I think, in the last 2 seasons. We're selling young players to keep ourselves. We're trying to run basically at break even, which is a nice thing sort of to do, but the problem is it means you don't really have any chance of going up. You might just about push for it, but the problem is you usually fall a bit short, as we have done like 2 or 3 times the last recent seasons. That's where the problem comes in. So yeah, apathy. You're absolutely right. It's the buzzword, really, isn't it? In terms of us, I think we're probably still a long way away from. I think if this whole takeover saga with Edinburgh Millwall, what was Edinburgh Mill, carries on much longer, I think that's when the apathy will turn into anger a bit more for us. But for you guys, it's clearly already reached that point quite a while ago, didn't it? I mean, there's issues with the owner and his brother, isn't there? I think his brother's the director of football or something, is he?
Yeah. And it's just, he is. And it's just it's this kind of like, there's nothing to see here kind of mentality. Like, as in like, what are you all talking about? We run the club really well. Like, there's no issues. Like, Boundary Park is like crumbling. It's the match day experience. Like, people complaining the other night after we played Warsaw. So we beat Stevenage 3-0, right? Scored a couple of really good goals. You might have seen Bahan Bula's goal, really good, composed. Right? He's capable of that. So there's that, and then straight away you're on Twitter and people are like, "Hey, we're only 7 points off the playoffs," and it's like, whoa, we got another home game on Tuesday night against Warsaw. Let normality just come back. We lost 3-1, abject performance. We haven't got a squad. We had like Pierre Gianni was suspended, and that threw the defence completely out kilter, and because we just don't have the depth, and it's just. I was going to make a point there. I started this with a point and went off on a tangent, and now I can't remember what I was going to come back to. But I think we put up with it for a long, long time. And I lived in Ireland for 10 years, and I started my podcast last year, last September. And through doing the podcast, sort of like investigating the issues at the club, bringing other fans on board, analysing our own supporters trust, analysing the issues, really getting stuck into it, we got to a point where it was like, if we don't start doing something about this, nothing's going to change. Like, it's up to us now. We've left this to go on for too long. And we had the issues with our supporters trust. And so my solution was to put myself forward and try and get people involved to come onto the trust and say, look, this is not the way that this trust you should be ready now. The whole point of this supporters trust, like, we own 3% of the club, our supporters trust. The whole point of it was that it would be ready in this circumstance to do something effective. And we've literally had to reform it. It's been ridiculous. And we have to take collective responsibility for that. As fans, it's easy for us all to look at each other. It's like that Spider-Man gif, isn't it? Where everyone's pointing. It's easy to do that. It really is. But somebody has got to stand up and say, no, enough's enough here now. And like, we had all those issues in the past where people are coming onto the supporters trust and then getting cosy with the club and then seeing that well, no, we don't want to rock the boat because they get in there and they get their perks. The job is to stand between the club and the supporters and be a watchdog and be a guardian and hold the club to account and call it out when it's doing things wrong.
I'll tell you what,
and
Matt,
all that kind of stuff,
This feels like holding up a mirror right now. It's incredible the amount of similarities. I think you're just a bit further down the road, and the difference is you've probably got an owner. I'm not necessarily saying there's malice there, but he just seems absolutely hopeless. Whereas he doesn't know
what he's doing, and you can't. It's like you wouldn't give a 5-year-old the keys to your car, would you? And wait for him to learn to drive. You wouldn't just say, "Go on, well, you'll pick it up eventually." Yeah. Well, you know what I mean? It's not how you do it. And what I encourage yourself and some of your listeners to do, if you really, if you're frustrated and you want to get more involved, is to come and listen to some of our podcasts, because what we've done is we've gone and listened to other supporters trusts, and what we've done with our podcast, it's kind of like a crisis podcast. Really, it's like, we're focusing not so much on the football, but some more on what's going on and what we can do about it. And so we've gone to Blackpool, Swindon, Northampton, Exeter, Leyton Orient, Portsmouth, loads of other clubs that have Stockport County, whose trusts have had to dig in and turn it around for their club. Brentford was a really good interview that we did. Yeah. And they've told us and they've given us loads of ideas and loads of inspiration. And what we've done then is we've kind of passed that on to our listeners. And then through the listenership of the podcast, we've increased the membership of the supporters trust. Like, we're well over 1,000 now. I think it was at 190 You know what I mean?
Well,
so that's what we've been able to do through the
ours is similar right now. I think it's about, well, I was about 400, but at the AGM, about 40 people vote usually, which tells you all you need to know. And bear in mind, our Supporters Trust owns 25% of the club.
Yeah.
But they're incapable of doing any fundraising because so many people hate them, and it's basically a vicious circle of people won't invest them because they don't like the people involved in the trust. We say to them, well, why don't you put yourself forward and join the trust and become the new people running it, and people will trust you. Oh, I don't want to. That's where the problem comes. It's a vicious circle. And I know
I'll tell you what though, Lee, like you've got a great vehicle, a great tool to be able to use, and like, you know, you're sat at the trapdoor like we are, and you know, it's like the thing is, we're doing all this and talking to supporters trusts and clubs, and you start to feel empathy for all clubs. And I'm looking at Carlisle and Scunthorpe, and I'm thinking, and Latics, and I'm thinking, I don't want any of these to go down. You know what I mean? But so two teams have got to go down. That's just the way it goes. But I don't want that to happen to any of us. But what I think, as long as everyone's going down and you've got a fighting chance, and you know, you feel like it's some kind of a level playing field, then that feels better. I think it's kind of, you feel sorry for. I mean, we're going to be speaking to Scunthorpe in the next week or two, in their supporters trust or something like that, and. You just want people, someone's got to go down, but what you'd like is a competitive league and a competitive bottom half, and it could go down to the white, you know, and it's just sporting, you know, not that clubs are just run into the ground and that this apathy sets in. Like, you know, Carlisle United is supposed to be the pride and joy of Carlisle, and Oldham Athletic is supposed to be the pride and joy of Oldham, and it's like, and I think it's up to us, like as fans, to do that. I think you're just waiting around for, you know, say, well, I've got a season ticket. What more do I need to do? Well, if that's your attitude, then you've just got to expect. You've just got to wait. You can't expect any more than what you're getting served up. Especially as you say, if your trust owns 25% of the club, like it's your club. Like you've got to take control of it, and that's what we're doing. And look, it's absolutely draining. That's why I've been on holiday, because it's been such hard work. Because we've had to sort of rebuild our trust. We've had to sort of rebuild faith in it. We've had to completely like put new policies and processes and all this in place. That is at the same time as like we're on Football Focus, we're in magazines, we're doing loads of press, we're everywhere. We're doing a podcast. It's really busy, and it's, you know, and we're all trying to work at the same time. It's hard, but it's hopefully it'll be worth it.
Oh, in the long term, you've got to hope it's worth it, haven't you? Really?
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah.
Well, like you said, you could talk forever. We've done about 12 minutes worth, and it's well worth hearing, because people want to know, especially from our viewpoint. It's just apathy is the key word, and apathy of our supporters trust is probably as big a problem as apathy with the owners at the club.
I think certainly what we've got from other supporters trusts is encouragement, inspiration, and support. Like they've been brilliant. Like once a club's been through something like where they've nearly gone out of existence, or they've plummeted, like Stockport did, to Conference League North, and then they've had to start rebuilding the club. They don't want to see it happen to other clubs. They don't want to see it happen to their local rivals and things like that. And they start getting behind each other. And what I would really love is for us to be able to pull ourselves out of this, use our experience to then try and help other clubs at a similar point. And then ultimately, what we need to do is we need to pull together as supporters and change the game. The game is ripe for changing. Like we have to take control of it as fans now. We can't just keep letting it run away like with this Super League. We're having all the warnings, you know. Like especially it starts to start at the lower level. I mean, the English Football League is amazing, isn't it? You know what I mean? 4 divisions. Well, basically 5 divisions now. With it's incredible. And I think using your story, using your experience to sort of help other clubs has been one of the most inspiring and like heartwarming things that's come out of it for us. And so hopefully, you know, we'll have our day, and then we'll be able to help other clubs. And like for you guys, I hope you are able to sort it out and turn it around. I mean, it's tight in it down there. There's plenty of time, isn't there? That's the thing. Yeah,
definitely. Well, let's focus a little bit on things on the pitch then now, Matt. Let's talk about the man in the hot seat at Boundary Park, a man very familiar to Carlisle United fans, Keith Curle. Been put in a very difficult situation, hasn't he, as your gaffer? What's the Oldham's fans' view on him? Because he was quite a divisive character, Brunton Park. He did a lot of good things, but a lot of fans love him. A lot of fans really don't like him, and the club have made it very clear over the last few seasons. One of the reasons we end up in a bit of a financial mess was the interesting bonus system that he insisted was put in place. Now, the argument is that the owners probably should have said, well, no, we're not going to go with that bonus system, but he took advantage, I think it's fair to say, of a chairman who just wants the best for the club and wants the club to succeed, and he agreed to the scheme, and it just basically, because we didn't get promotion, it didn't really help as much. So, yeah, Keith Curle, thoughts on him?
I think the word. I mean, before you said the word divisive, that's what I was going to say. I think fans are divided on him. I think it's a very, very difficult situation for him to come into because of the sporting director, because of the financial restraints that we're under. The budget has got less and less. The quality of the players that we bring in, the quality of the squad that we bring in just gets worse and worse every season under this fella. And Curle's just like the 9th manager at the end of all this. So there's a lot of people saying, well, it's very hard to manage under this situation. It's hard to recruit. You know, we're basically picking up whoever can. We've got lucky with a few players, but the majority of the squad are just people that are out of contract somewhere else that have had a lot of injuries and need a club. You know, we can't pay much in terms of wages because of the embargo. Not that we have much to spend anyway. So in that circumstance, you say, yeah, okay, he's got a really, really tough job. Alternatively, he seems to persist with this formation of 3-5-2-1, which doesn't seem to suit the kind of players that we've got. Some of his decision making seems to be questionable on the pitch during the game. He's not particularly, I don't know what he was like at Carlisle, but he's not particularly animated on the touchline. He seems to stand there with his arms crossed, which always to me looks, you know, we lost 2-1 against Harrogate recently. The Harrogate manager, you know, a couple of minutes to go there, 2-1 up, barking orders. Curle's just kind of stood there with his arms crossed, and that always bothers me a little bit. And I mean, there are some people saying already that, look, he's had enough time. You know, he was here towards the end of last season. His record with us is terrible. But then so's pretty much every other manager that we've had for the last however many years under these two. So, yeah. I mean, if he goes, who do we bring in? You know? Yeah,
that's your question. They're going to have to work with the same players, aren't they? That's the challenge. One player did sign them some, Hallam Hope. How's he getting on? He's an ex-Blue as well. He seems to be doing okay so far. I think he scored a few goals maybe. And Nicky Adams, how's he getting on as well? Because I think
he's injured, Nicky Adams. Right. So, but Nicky Adams is Nicky Adams, and you know what you're going to get from him.
Exactly.
Hallam Hope has been played up front on his own most of the time. He works hard, he chases things, but you know he's not hard. I've not seen how many touches he gets of the ball and what he's been able to do with it, that kind of stats, but I can't imagine it's been very fruitful for him. He got dropped the last couple of games. He scored the other night against Warsaw, but you know he's not like, you know, we don't really have a striker. We've got Zach Durnley, who's back from injury now, but he's like, we've had him for a couple of seasons and he's always injured. And he on his day, like when he was fit, was very quick, was a good finisher. He seems to have lost some of his pace, seems to have bulked up a bit. But he's been played up front on his own. For me, I don't see why they can't just go with, if you're going to play Hope and Durnley up front, might be a bit better for everybody. But we don't have the right players for the right positions. We sort of like making do, and you know, this 3. He plays like a 3-4-2-1. That's what he kind of plays. Doesn't seem to work. It kind of leaves us, the balance doesn't seem right, but he seems to stick with it every single game. Yeah. So,
what's interesting to say about Hope playing up front on his own, because when he was with us, he was always, I wouldn't say always banging on, but I think he was always insisting that he was a striker and he wanted to play as a striker. But all of his best performances from us came from playing off the left. He'd been able to come inside and do stuff there, and he was a very good player when he did that. But
I've not seen him play out on the left once this season. I saw him get pushed out to the right against Harrogate in the second half, and you know, was just as ineffective as he was down the middle. But we've got like Dylan Bahambula, who's on his day is a really good player, but he's one of those that I've seen him at a couple of games where he's just been blowing by 60 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, he's one I was going to ask you about, because it seems every week there's some sort of clip of him doing something ridiculous.
Oh yeah, he's very skillful, very talented,
very exciting
footballer.
player to watch.
Yeah, but you've got. I prefer him out on the wing.
Yeah.
But I think the reason Curle doesn't want to play him he doesn't want to play him on the right of a 4 in midfield, because he doesn't think he's going to get up and down enough to do enough defensively. So he wants to kind of keep him a bit higher up the pitch. But at the same time, that doesn't suit his game as much either. I think he's more effective when he actually comes from deeper and he gets his stride on and he runs at players and he gets them on the back foot. So. Yeah, look, at the end of the day, it's up to Keith Curle. He knows more about football than I do. So, it's up to him to get the best balance out of it. But again, it's not... We thought that because Curle ended last season and had the whole of the pre-season, that he was actually going to build a squad that made sense. You know what I mean? Like, his first 11, and then he's got such and such as backups and this, that. And it's like he's got a squad with playing a certain way in mind. It doesn't seem that that's been achieved, and that's frustrating, because it's the first time we've had a manager finish one season and start the other season since these guys came in and took over. So it's actually not been effective at all in that respect. Some positives though, we've had a young lad called Harry Vaughan come through. He's 17 and he's just made his international debut for Ireland. I'm not quite sure at what level, but another lad called Benny Couto, who is a Portuguese lad who we've just signed. He was actually a scholar when he made his debut, but they've just signed him on a 3.5-year deal. And those two lads are absolutely brilliant. Like, you'll see on Saturday. Hopefully they'll play. I think Couto will definitely play. Whether or not he'll start Vaughan. But Vaughan's one of these little sort of central midfielders. You could play him out wide. He looks, when he's on the pitch, it's hard to tell how tall he is, but when he stood next to all these 6'4" centre halves in League Two, he looks about 5 feet tall. Low centre of gravity, gets stuck in, but like twists and turns and moves so well. That kind of, he's a real proper footballer, and Benny Couto is as well. Brilliant delivery for one of our goals at the weekend. Left-sided player, loads of energy. So Junior Lawamba has come through as well. I think he's injured. He's a striker, but he's only scored one goal so far. So there are a few like positives, but these guys have been kind of thrust into the first team when they wouldn't have been, have been normally. But having said that, like Brian Clough used to say, if you're good enough, you're old enough, and these lads are definitely good enough.
Well, I mean, what I would say before we just got onto the predictions, that one thing that people always said about Keith Curle when he was in charge at our place was that he had pretty much zero interest in the youth team. He barely even went to watch them over the 3 or 4 years. So the fact that he's sticking young players in there probably does suggest that it's a situation where you haven't really got much choice but to throw them in. So
we really don't. We have no. In fairness, we've got a lot of injuries. Sam Hart made quite a positive start to the season out on the left. Signed him from Southend, I think, and to be fair, he's been good. We have got a long injury list, and it's got to the point where you're seeing these names on the bench at the weekend. You're like, who's that? So there really is just a case of trying to fill the bench with whoever's available. But yeah, I mean, we're under no illusions. It's going to be a struggle this season for sure. Yeah.
Come on then, let's have your prediction for the game this weekend. I think some people have said it's like two bald men fighting over a comb this game, but we'll have to see how it turns out. How do you reckon it'll go?
It's a funny one because Pierre Gianni was suspended. I think he's back. I don't know if it's a 1-game suspension. If it's for yellow cards, is it just a 1-game suspension?
It'll be 1 game, yeah, I think.
Yeah, so hopefully Pierre Gianni will be back. We've been more solid at the back. With him and McGahey when he's come back from injury. McGahey came back against Rochdale and made a massive difference. So I think with where you are in the league and you struggling for goals and us being a lot more solid at the back, I think it'll be a low-scoring game. I don't think we do that well up at your place traditionally, do we?
You won last season, but...
Did we?
Yeah, I think it was 3. Was it 3-1 in the end, I think?
Yeah, last season, but it was a bit of a freaky season. But anyway, I'm gonna have to go for a 1-0 to us. I think that's what I'm gonna go for.
Yeah.
I'm gonna be. I don't necessarily believe that we've. I wouldn't be surprised if it were 0-0.
Yeah, I don't think anyone would be surprised with that, to be honest.
Yeah, but I'm gonna stick my neck out and go for a 1-0.
Hallam hope to score, no doubt.
Yeah, because we've scored 4 goals in our last 2 games, so I'm feeling a bit more optimistic about us actually getting a goal.
Oh, well, there you go.
Than I was earlier on in the season.
Yeah. Matt, thanks for your time. It was really good to speak to you, and I think we all agree we really hope that Oldham can sort the problems out as soon as possible.
It's a pleasure, Lee, and I hope that that people listening get a bit of fire in their bellies about your supporters trust and you know.
Yeah.
Don't become a victim of apathy. It's a killer.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, mate.
Cheers, Matt.
Nice to talk to you, Lee.
Okay, thanks once again to Matt for giving up so much of his time to talk through the many, many issues at Oldham Athletic right now. It's
interesting, wasn't it?
Very interesting, isn't it? And very interesting to see quite a few of the parallels and how arguably they're a bit further down the line. And I did have a chat with him actually a little bit afterwards, after we finished recording, and he was saying, like, in terms of position, we're in so much better position than them, than that we actually own part of the club through the Supporters Trust.
Yeah.
Obviously, the issue is that the Supporters Trust is so toxic that there's problems there. We'll touch on it later in terms of we're talking about future episodes, but I think there might be a special brewing in terms of that, mightn't there, Dan? I think it's fair to say. Let's move on to the game then. It's obviously this weekend's referee, Benjamin Speedy. It's his second season as the EFL referee. He's actually taken charge of 13 games this season, handing out 37 yellow cards and 1 red card. And he's only taken charge of 1 United game before, and that was the 2-1 defeat to Fleetwood in some competition that we don't talk about last season.
So he's never took charge of us before?
Arguably, yeah, in the same way that he's never actually sent off Gimme Toure because it got rescinded, but there you go. So that's the referee. Head-to-head, played them 87 times in our history. It must be one of the highest that I think, but maybe Hartlepool, Darlington, higher maybe, possibly Rochdale.
There's 1 or 2 more.
I think there's not a huge amount more, but I think they're up
no,
near
but
the top, aren't
it's as we mentioned, it's with the northern teams, you know, it's usually from the days of regionalisation.
Yeah, the issue we've got is we had those years, didn't we, where we were in the second tier quite a lot, weren't we, in the 60s and 70s and that, so that confuses it. So 37 wins to United, 21 draws and 29 wins for Oldham, so we're quite well ahead in the head-to-head there. It's a rarity. Classic clash, Dan. I mean, there was only one I was going to pick for that, wasn't there? We're going back to Boxing Day 2018. Oh, what a clash! A Boxing Day clash for the Blues. Where
I'll tell you a game that wasn't, and older listeners will agree with me. But the end of my first season, 85-86, when the unfortunate happened and we got relegated.
Yeah, what was the score on that one though?
I'm just getting it here. It was
5-2.
2-1.
Oh, 2-1. Sorry, yes, we lost
2-1. It was
after
the infamous 3-2 at home to Charlton. We went to Oldham and relegation was confirmed.
There you go.
Great first season.
Yeah. Well, now we're going back to Boxing Day 2018. A game where they dominated so much that if it had been a boxing match, it would have been stopped after about an hour for mercy, wouldn't it? I think it's fair to say. We were just sort of hitting our... Yeah, I mean, we went into the game looking for 3 wins in a row, sort of hitting our stride under John Sheridan, weren't we, at this point? We were just starting to find a bit of form. The opening goal came on 18 minutes as Selby was sent away on the right. His ball inside found Naddison, who did quite well, actually. He turned inside the box and he was trying to hit with his left foot, and the defender sort of slides in and blocks it, but the ball falls really nicely for Hallam Hope, who had a very busy afternoon on the left, and he sort of fired it in, and the keeper sort of dives into it, doesn't he? But he can't really stop it with the momentum, and it goes into the back of the net. The second came on the half-an-hour mark. Jamie Devitt, no surprise here, tried his luck from 25 yards. Keeper makes a decent save. It sort of balloons up, though, and Hope is really quick to react, gets it on the left, and he plays it back across, and it's a weird finish from Jerry Yates, this one, isn't it? Because he's got it looks like he's going behind him, and he somehow manages to sort his feet out and sort of clip it past the keeper. Really strange sort of goal.
I remember when that goal was scored, everyone was like, how did he do that?
Yeah, it was mad, wasn't
what happened there?
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't until the second half that United further extended their lead as Hope was played in space down the left, and his cross into the box was met by a diving header from Naddison, and he managed to place the ball past the keeper and into the back of the net. The fourth goal was a bit of a landmark one, wasn't it? Danny Granger stepped up to Curle in a free kick from 25 yards. I think the keeper probably should have done better with actually when you look back at it. He gets a good hand to it. Well struck, but a good hand. That was actually Granger's last goal for the club, wasn't it, Dan? So there you go. So fifth goal came on 71 minutes. Devitt pounced on a sloppy bit of defending and he played the ball perfectly through for Jerry Yates. He showed good composure to advance and get to the edge of the box, and he fired the ball past the keeper for his second of the game. The icing on the cake came in the 90th minute as Hope was again the provider. He advanced into the box on the left and picked out Gary Liddell, of all people, in the 6-yard box. And he sort of bundles the ball into the back of the net. It's not even like a header. It's almost like his chest, isn't it? It's a strange goal. And that gave United their biggest league win in 12 years, I think. I'm trying to work this out, I'm pretty sure.
You've hammered someone when the likes of Gary Liddell are bundling balls into the net.
In the 6-yard box, he's coming in for a cross, isn't he? In the 90th minute. It tells you all you need to know, really, doesn't it? I mean, the most astonishing thing about this afternoon, though, wasn't the game itself, was it? It was John Sheridan's post-match interview. I've never seen a manager look so annoyed that his side had won 6-0. He was miserable. He was having like
amazing, wasn't it?
I mean, it emerged afterwards, didn't it? I think there's rumours came out that he had a big fallout with a few players, possibly Devitt and Granger were mentioned, weren't they? He just wasn't happy. He won the next 2 games though, but then departed after the Morecambe game, wasn't it? I think that we won on New Year's Day. So that was the end of his spell as manager. He went to Chesterfield, didn't really work out there. Went to Swindon, didn't really work out there. Went to Wigan, didn't really work out there. So. Yeah, not a great time since he left. I think maybe should have stayed, but then again, I think
a few payoffs, didn't he?
Well, yeah, but I think he might have just seen what was coming at Carlisle. I think at that point, because obviously we had a few loan players left, didn't they? So yeah, it was interesting. I mean, the thing that stood out for me watching the highlights back on this, Dan, was just how important Hallam Hope was to that team. I think he's a player who gets a bit more stick than he deserves. Because I think he's quite underrated in terms of especially when a team's doing well. He's a vital part of it, isn't he? Especially playing off the left, I think he's a really good player. But what you give for that front three now, wouldn't you? God, it's different gravy to what we've got now.
It is, isn't it? It's just different level, isn't it?
Different level altogether. Right, so let's move on to the play for both list, Dan, because there's a lot of names to pick out here. You've picked one out for us, haven't you? So you're going to cover that now.
Yeah, and this week I've gone for a Geordie, born in Newcastle in 1979. Started his career at Newcastle. Did make a small handful of appearances for them. It is David Beharrell.
I knew you were going to pick him. As soon as you said Geordie, I thought, that's the only one on the list I can see here that is a Geordie from what I remember.
No, he made a couple of appearances for Newcastle. He was in a 5-1 loss at Man United, I remember. But he had a couple of loan spells. First at Grimsby, played a few games. Then he had one at Oldham, which actually... He joined Oldham for 150 grand in 2002, which decent amount back then.
Yeah.
He spent 4 years at Oldham, but he didn't play that many games. You know, a lot of injuries, and he was actually the victim of a carjacking during his time at Oldham.
I forgot about that. Yeah.
In 2003, him and Adam Griffin stopped at a cash machine. And he was in a 20 grand Mercedes, and Griffin was left defenceless when someone with a knife point and an iron bar, and you know, he lost his wallet and his phone, but he was just happy that him and Griffin were okay, you know. And
I'd have thought so.
Yeah, and it didn't really happen for him at Oldham. You know, managers changed. When Brian Talbot came in, he played half a dozen games, and he was actually agreed a settlement to pay up in the January. Yeah. And then 9 days later, he joined us on an 18 months. So his agent's had the right one there, hasn't he?
Yeah, definitely.
But he played a bit of a part in the return to the Football League. Played all the playoff matches, you know, and scored 1 goal in the 2-1 win at Farnborough. But then his pre-season was knackered, and he had an injury, and he didn't really have. They couldn't really find out what the problem was with it, but it stunted him at the club, and he just made bit part appearances, and he left on the 1st of February, which will have been deadline day, won't it?
Yeah.
it was sort of a mutual agreement, and he joined Stockport. But in the end of that season, he retired due to ongoing bad knee injury. So it just whatever it was never settled.
Yeah.
But he's been a bit different from the average player we have on this, because he went on and set up a digital agency called Candid Sky in Manchester.
Did really well, isn't he, I think?
He's won a North West Entrepreneur of the Year, an award for his work within social media, and his company, there's a digital industry award called the Big Chip Awards, which are like recognised as the biggest in the UK, and his Candid Sky won Best Use of Search and CRO at the 18th Annual Awards. So, I think if you Google his name and Candid Sky, there is some quite interesting articles pop up with him.
Worth a read, isn't it? Yeah, he's
definitely
an interesting one, though, isn't he? Because he was a centre back predominantly at Oldham, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Simo signed him and just played him at right back. I think he played maybe 1 or 2 games at centre back maximum.
Yeah,
but yeah, like you said, he lost his place at the start of the 2005-06 season to Paul Arneson and just never got it back, did he? And that was the problem for him. So, yeah, interesting name there. Okay, let's go through the full list, and it's a long one. We'll sort of skim some of them because we've discussed them before and other ones. But I mean, obvious one, he's already there. Nicky Adams is still there. Probably won't play this weekend though. I think he's injured, so he's not going to feature. Alf Agar, I think he's very early days blue, isn't he? I think. Luis Alessandra, he had a spell at Oldham. I think he started his career there, actually, did he? I think possibly.
I'll have to check on that.
I have a feeling he did anyway. Ben Amos, he had a loan spell there, like he had a loan spell with us from Manchester United. Yeah. David Baharrell, you've already mentioned. Graham Bell, Richie Bennett. I think he started his career at Oldham as well as a youth, and I don't think he ever played a first team game.
He's from that way, isn't he?
Yeah. Paul Black, we mentioned him the other week. Let's say the better.
This next one pops up in a few lists, doesn't he? Considering he didn't actually make an appearance for us.
Dean Bouzanis.
Yeah.
He's had a few loan spells, didn't he? I don't think he even played for Oldham, possibly. The 2 Browns, Connor Brown and Reece Brown, both been at Oldham, both been at Carlisle. Tony Cars, he's an interesting one, wasn't he?
Tony Cars was slightly underrated, I thought. Well, he wasn't a bad little player.
He was a good little player. I think we had him on like a month-to-month contract, I think, under Atkins. And I think basically he just got offered better money to go to Chesterfield, so went there. So
yeah.
Interesting character. Adam Collin, I think he had a loan spell at Oldham. I don't know. I think he maybe played 1 game for them, possibly, from Newcastle. Someone who's managed both clubs, Keith Curle. Obviously, we'll touch on him in a little bit. I didn't realise this fellow had played for Oldham. David Curry, he had a spell there. Greg Fleming, I think he played quite a few games for Oldham, didn't he, actually, I think, at some point, I'm sure. Dean Furman, obviously, played a lot more for Oldham than he did for us.
When he was at Oldham, every couple of months I said, we need to sign that lad, he's a good player. And then he went to Doncaster, and he was quality, and then he went... he came to us a couple of years too late, to be quite honest.
Yeah, that was the problem. Anthony Gerrard, did fairly well at Oldham, and he was an important player that season when he was with us, wasn't he? I think we needed an experienced head.
Just a bit dodgy when he left, wasn't it?
Yeah, to be honest, you've got to learn that you're going to have to deal with that with Anthony Gerrard, aren't you, really? So, but yeah, I'll always remember that game against Bury where he grabbed his student he was trying to give one of our fans. Got a ban for that, didn't he? A 1-game ban. Yeah. Lewis Guy, he had a spell at Oldham. Callum Higginbotham, who regularly gets mentioned in our X-Blues updates, not this week though. Clint Hill, he had I think a season at Oldham possibly towards the start of his career. Hallam Hope is there now. Les Horton. Chris Howarth, I think he played 1 game for Oldham like he played 1 game for us. Jabbo Obira, you think Jabbo was at Oldham, don't you?
Yeah.
Interesting one. A couple of Joneses. Alex Jones, I think he was a fullback. Possibly 89, 91, I think.
He was more... He played full and central.
Yeah. So you'll remember him because I think he was round about the sort of start of your following of United, I think. Mike Jones, obviously he had time at Oldham. Darren Kelly didn't play for Oldham, but he did manage them. Not for very long, but he did manage them.
See, I heard the reason why his managerial spell failed was because they couldn't get a telly big enough for him to show his diagrams up on.
Yeah, exactly.
Because his telly is massive.
Yeah. Frank Clark.
Fans of a certain era will appreciate
We'll get that joke.
Darren Kelly and his massive telly.
Frank Large, I think he left United to go to Oldham, actually. Two good spells for both clubs in terms of scoring goals. One that's probably best to forget, Alex Marrow.
Do you know something? Long after he'd left us, I was on a training course with work, and there was a lad from works in London, lives in Kent, and we got cracking to him. Turns out he lived next door to Alex Marrow.
Did he?
And he said you couldn't meet a nicer kid, but he was just permanently partying.
that does not surprise you, does it, really?
To the point where he'd have to politely knock and say, "Sorry, Alex, we're up for work in the morning." He just, sorry, mate, yeah, and then next day, he'd drop off a bunch of flowers for his miss. Oh, I'm really sorry, a couple more came back than we expected. Oh, yeah, no bother. And I said he was a lovely lad, just he liked the rave too much.
There you go. Couple of McDonald's now, obviously with Rod. He had a spell at Oldham. I don't think he ever played a first team game for them, did he? I don't think. And Neil, he was a player at Oldham for a short while. George McVitie, he had time at Oldham. Neil Moore, 90s throwback there, isn't it? I think he was mid-90s on loan from Everton, was it?
Yeah.
Paul Murray, well liked at both clubs.
I was going to say Paul Murray's probably the one on this list that's had the most at both clubs.
Yeah, I think arguably more at Oldham because he spent quite a while at Oldham.
Yeah.
And 90s loan throwback again here, Tony Philliskirk.
Wow.
Jason Price. I didn't even realise he's been everywhere, to be fair, so not really massive surprise. David Reeves, I think he was towards the end of his career at Oldham, wasn't he? Carlos Roca. I thought you were going to pick him, I was convinced you were going to pick Carlos Roca for the...
it did come across, but when, obviously, because Behel's got that interesting post-football career, he just nosed it.
Yeah. Stephen Schumacher, I think he was there permanently, wasn't he? He had a loan spell. Yeah. Rob Scott, there's another 90s loaney throwback. Good player, wasn't he? He was a decent player for us. John Sheridan managed both clubs. He played at Oldham as well. I think he managed Oldham about 4 times, doesn't he? Due a 5th one soon, you think.
Yeah.
Alan Smart, towards the end of his career, he was at Boundary Park. Mark Tierney, Mick Wadsworth has managed both clubs. Paul Warhurst, he's played for both clubs. He played for us.
He turned up for us once.
Yeah. And Kieran Westwood had a spell at Oldham. I don't think he played a game. I think he was cover on loan, wasn't he? But obviously at United he was a little bit more successful, I think it's fair to say. Okay, well, let's play for both of them then, Dan. So let's get on to the sort of talking about Oldham current day. Now, they're a mess, aren't they? Off the field. It's just one thing after another, isn't it? I mean, the guy who owns them's not particularly popular. His brother's the director of football, doesn't seem to have a clue how to run a football club. But there's been a lot of talk. I mean, David Wheater was in the press talking about him, wasn't he? Saying he was clueless. And I think a few players who've left have said the same thing. But I mean, there are some good players in that squad, aren't there? When you look at it, there's some decent players in there, but there's big gaping holes, and they're relying a lot on young players right now. And I mean, the fact that they've had to announce 5 signings before the start of the season, that's the kind of stuff we were doing was it when Roddy Collins took over, wasn't it? I think we had 2 or 3 players announced on the opening day and playing. It doesn't set a good scene, does it, for the season?
No, Swindon have shown what you can do when that happens this year, because they had a late flurry, likes of McCurdy and that, and it goes one or two ways. It all depends what state your club's in, who your manager is. It can either click like Swindon have a bit, they've steadied themselves, or it can go pear-shaped, which, in Oldham's case, unfortunately, so far it has.
Yeah, I mean the form's picked up a little bit. We'll mention that shortly. Let's talk about the man in charge. Then, Dan, I know you really don't want to because you're not a massive fan of his. I think it's fair to say.
I'm not, but I'm. It's history as far as my club's concerned.
Yeah.
So, and I think he's quite astute going to Oldham. I do doff my cap to him on this because he went to Oldham last season knowing what was going on, knowing he's on a no-lose.
Yeah, if he turns things around, he looks like a genius.
If he turns things around, he's a genius.
If he doesn't, he'll just say,
if we get rid of him, he just says, well, good luck to the next one. I tried. You can't do anything here.
Right, I'm about the
and he'd also be saying that in future interviews. it's a madcap there. It's crazy. It's
I mean, it's a worse situation than in what he took over at United, isn't it? 100% a worse situation than when he took over in 2014. He's reunited with two of his old favourites, though, isn't he? Nicky Adams was already there when he arrived, but he's brought Hallam Hope in as well, hasn't he? So getting the boys back together in that sense.
Let's get the band together for one more tour.
What was it? Someone, is it Mike always says, I wish I could find a woman who looks at me the same way that Keith Curle looks at Hallam Hope and his availability to sign on a free transfer. The one thing I don't think he'll be enjoying this season, though, is the fact that they're having to rely heavily on young players, because as we know, he had not much interest in the youth team at Cal United, I think it's fair to say. Star man, Dan, I mean, there's only one person to pick for this, isn't there, really, for them? Bamboozle. Bamboozle. Yeah, Bamboozle, is it? Dylan Bahambula. I mean, he seems every week there's a clip appearing on Twitter and stuff like that, isn't it, of something crazy he's done. I mean, the goal he scored against Stevenage, it's a bit mad defending, but the composure he shows, I mean, it's the kind of thing you'd expect Toure to maybe do that for us, wouldn't you, flick it over the keeper and that, but you wouldn't back Toure to have the composure to actually go and finish it off. Whereas with him, you feel like, he's calm, collected, and he's going to finish it off every time. And there's obviously concerns about how good he is defensively in terms of covering, but overall as a player, I mean, he's a talent, isn't he? He's an exciting player. You'd want him in your team, wouldn't you? 100%.
You wonder if he's away in January.
Well, he had a trial at Middlesbrough in the summer, didn't he? He was under contract to Oldham, and they let him go on trial to Middlesbrough, which I thought, that's a bizarre move. But I did think to myself, Middlesbrough's the kind of club I could see Bambula. I don't know why. It just strikes me as the kind of club that would sign a player like him. But I mean, he's a big player. It's weird that big clubs haven't signed him up yet, but I mean, if they're going to stay up, they're going to need him to be firing on all cylinders, really, to keep them up there. In terms of other key squad members, Dan, I don't know if you've looked through the ones I've picked out here. I mean, obviously Curle's going to be relying heavily on experience this season. So, I mean, Nicky Adams, he's injured this weekend, but he's obviously a big player for them, playing at right back these days. Carl Piergiani, he's a player as well that, at the heart of defence, from what Matt was saying before from the Oldham podcast, he's been a big player for them as well in terms of leading the back line. And I think as well, I mean, we all know what Hallam Hope can do when he's on form. He's a player that most defences just don't want to face up against in this division. When he's not on form, he's a bit of a waste of a shirt. And the other one I really like is Kelly Davis Dunn. He's a player I always really liked. I think I'd love to see him at Brunton Park. I think he'd be a really good player for us. Any others you've seen in the squad that you fancy the look of, Dan, or you?
No, I think you've covered them, to be quite honest.
It's a lot of young players, a lot of interesting ones. The Portuguese lad they've just signed on an extended deal who's supposed to be quite a talent, so be interested to see how he gets on this weekend. In terms of current form, Dan, when I mentioned there before, the form's actually not that bad over the last 6 games. They're currently 13th from the form table, which is 10 places higher than United are right now. Their current record is quite consistent. It's drawn 1, lost, drawn 1, lost. So probably a draw is what you put your money on this weekend, isn't it, I think? The 2 wins in those last 6 games have come against Rochdale and Stevenage. Stevenage are dropping like a stone at the moment as well, so probably a good thing they've taken advantage of that. Rochdale's a big one for them though, isn't it? Because it's a local derby, so be very happy with that one. In terms of where they're struggling at, I mean, at both ends of the pitch really, isn't it? Goals wise, they're not scoring too many. Defensively, conceding too many. Their defensive record's slightly better than United. They've conceded 19 to United's 21, but they've also scored 1 less goal, 10 to United's 11. So their goal difference is just 1 better than United, which is what's keeping them 1 place above the Blues in the table on goal difference. Let's touch on United then, Dan. Obviously, injury wise, Dixon and Norman are both definitely out. Kelvin Mellor looks like he's still just recovering. I think he might be involved on the bench maybe this weekend. Gimme Toure, we mentioned, we're going to say he was doubtful with an injury, but turns out he's gone out on loan, hasn't he, as we record? He's joined Aldershot on loan for a month. Yes,
just as we're recording now, 5 o'clock there, it came through that he's joined on an initial month loan. I would hazard a guess we might not see him in a Carlisle shirt again.
No, I imagine if he does well there, he'll probably go there permanently in the summer, January. Makes sense, to be honest. It's getting him game time, you know. Isn't it? I'll never ever get why Beech extended his deal and then decided just not to use him.
Yeah.
Utterly pointless. You should have just let him go and let him find a new club and start again. But there you go. So yeah, that's in terms of injuries and knocks and stuff like that. Tristan Abrahams was left out of the squad in midweek and wasn't injured. So interesting to see whether he gets involvement at the weekend. Something we didn't touch on in the Tranmere bit. I was really disappointed with his sub appearance when he came on against Tranmere. Actually, I thought he didn't do anywhere near enough as a sub to worry the Tranmere back line. I think he was one of those pawns we thought, you're not fighting for a place in the team right now, are you?
Yeah.
Really disappointing. So what does he do then, Dan? Stick with the same side that started Newport? Maybe bring in Brad Young for a bit of energy up front?
I think you tweak it. If you've got a fit right back, do you look to move Riley up?
I think I'd stick with it. I think I'd keep Riley in there. I don't really have any problem at the moment.
I think we need a better striker up front.
Mm-hmm.
Stick or twist. They finished the game quite well. I know it was against 9 men, but we're at home. We're against a poor side.
Yeah.
I think he'll be tempted to stick.
Yeah, maybe a minor tweak. Maybe, like I said, a Young coming in for Alessandro. Possibly.
Yeah.
I think he likes having the experience up there at the moment, doesn't he? I think without being able to make any signings. Really.
We've said a couple of times that Alessandro is coming into the twilight of his career.
Yeah, he's
more suited to coming off the bench.
Yeah, late on in a game when you're trying to hold on to a lead and you want someone to hold on to the ball a bit and be intelligent with the use of it. That's where Alessandro's going to come into his own this season, I think.
Yeah.
At the moment, he's just playing because we don't have any options, essentially, do we?
Yeah.
That's the problem. Okay, then, Dan. Predictions. Let's have your predictions for this weekend.
Well, it's Carlisle United versus Keith Curle's Oldham. It's going to be 4-3 to Carlisle.
I'm so annoyed because you know what? I was going to pick that myself. I really thought it's going to be a mental game that neither team can defend. We scored a few goals. They've scored a few goals lately.
Clough 2, Young and Gibson.
Clough 2 and Young and Gibson. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm going to go the same. I'm going to go 4-3. Why not? I'm going to go... Clough will get one. I think Riley will get another. I fancy Alessandro to maybe get one because I think he will start, and then Mellish for the other. There you go. 4 different scorers. 4-3. Let's hear what Mike's got to say. Mike has sent in his predictions to me earlier today.
I am actually going to predict a 2-0 win for the Blues with an attendance of bang on 4,000, and John Mellish is going to score a brace.
Oh, there you go. Bang on 4,000. Well, that's a very precise prediction for the attendance there. We didn't even do well, did we? I'm going to go for 4,172.
4-4.
4-4. Well, there you go. Right. X-File section, Dan, to round things up. A busy week for goals, wasn't it? And cards.
Yeah, it wasn't. They came in little batches, didn't they?
FA Cup was very kind to us, wasn't it, in this sense?
Yeah. We've got Cole Stockton again. And if you actually Google this most unlikely combination of names, Cole Stockton and Tyson Fury, there's an article about them today. I think it was in the Daily Mail.
Saw that. That was really good.
Jerry Yates got a goal for Blackpool in the 2-1 defeat at Forest, and then a brace, including a pen, in the 3-2 win over Reading.
Just finding his form, isn't he, in the Championship?
Yeah.
Now?
Andy Cook scored for Bradford. A belter in the Saturday game to the FA Cup. Kelvin Langmead scored for Banbury in the 1-0 win over Bath.
Obviously, he's centre-back these days, isn't he?
Yeah.
Banbury, who Banbury playing in the first round? Are they playing someone quite big? Is it Barrow they're playing, actually?
You said someone big.
Oh, sorry, no. I meant a league side, I should have said, sorry. They're playing, I think they're playing Barrow, aren't they? Yeah.
Paddy Madden scored a penalty for Stockport against Stamford in the Cup.
They won that 3-0, I think, was it?
Mark Beck scored for York in the 1-1 draw with Morpeth. And Angelo Balanta scored 2 for Dagenham in their win over Wealdstone in the Cup. Then midweek, we had goals for Mark Cullen, got 2 for Hartlepool. Charlie Wykes.
Just on that one quickly, Dan. I mean, there was a 3-1 win over Bradford. Bradford
Good win, that.
Bradford are not doing that well this season.
No,
with Adams,
they've dipped, haven't they? They've dipped.
Yeah, not really. Well.
Charlie White scored again for Wigan. He seems to be getting 1 or 2. Tom Lawrence got a goal for Derby in their draw with Luton. Ryan Loft missed a 3rd-minute penalty for Scunthorpe at Barrow.
Put it wide, didn't he?
Yeah.
It's dreadful.
Hallam Hope scored for Oldham in their defeat at Walsall. Gateshead had a 3-2 win over Marsk United, a small team from Middlesbrough way. Kedwin Scott and Adam Campbell scored for them in that game. And a red card. Ashley Addison got a second booking for diving in Crawley's defeat at Exeter.
When you watch the video, it looks a little bit harsh, the decision, actually. But then someone else said apparently there's an angle behind the goal that shows he wasn't touched at all and he deserved it. His career's not really taken off in the way that I thought he would do after he left us.
No, I think he's too home comfort.
Yeah, I would have loved to have seen. I think if he'd stayed with us, I think he could have done really well for us. But there you go. What can you do? That's it then, Dan. It's going to be a long episode, this one, to be fair. And thank you to everyone for sticking with it till the very end. It's a bit of a slog. Thank you once again to our sponsors, the London branch. Remember, you can subscribe to the podcast and give us a review wherever you get your podcasts, whether that's Acast, Google, Apple Podcasts, Spotify. You know, it's brilliant. I mean, at the moment, we're averaging, we think, about 500 listens an episode, which is brilliant. We're really, really pleased with that. And we want more people to find out about it.
Spread the word.
Hey, we're the top-rated Cal United podcast on the internet, aren't we, Dan?
Happy days.
Get yourselves listening to us. Get yourselves subscribing, and we're going to get a few more episodes out in the near future as well, aren't we? Obviously you can follow us on social media. Brunton Bugle on Twitter @ Brunton Bugle. We've got the Facebook page, which I am updating a little bit more regularly now. As well as that, you'll find us on the Be Just on Fear Not group and a few other places as well, won't you? Okay, do you want the World Mapper listeners update, Dan? I think we might have a couple.
I actually tweeted this on our Twitter, didn't I? And we got one or two replies. But if you haven't seen it, go on our Twitter and give us a reply to it if you're one of those highlighted countries.
Have we done Argentina before, Dan? I can't remember if we have or not. Because Argentina, we've got a listener.
I think we have, you know.
Yeah, well, we got Hungary as well as a new listener. And I finally managed to get into our Spotify stats, and we've got a listener in Hong Kong listening to us. So, international blues are all over the place, aren't they? It's crazy. In terms of upcoming episodes, we'll do a preview episode for Northampton next week as usual. We're hopefully in the next couple of weeks as well, we're going to try and fit in a little special episode about the state of play at Cal United, basically. We're going to look at all things. The ownership issue, the sports trust not being trusted issue, the Brunton Park issue, anything you think you want us to talk about in terms of the problems at the club. We'll
probably put this up on the socials. I mean,
yes, definitely.
To be honest, we could end up with a 6-hour episode here, but sort of the key points, and we'll try and group them together into, as you say, those sort of categories.
Yeah, definitely. That's it then, Dan. Hopefully, Gavin Skelton will, if he's going to finish his caretaker, will sign off with 3 points this weekend, won't he, Dan? That's what we're all hoping for. Thanks everyone for listening as usual, and up the Blues.
Up the Blues.
All are united between us.